In today's video, we'll be carrying on with our Power of Now series. Okay, so now we're on to chapter 2. This chapter is called Consciousness, the Way Out of Pain. So if you haven't watched the previous 2 videos that I did in the Power of Now series on chapter 1, make sure to click the link up here and go watch those videos first. So this chapter as well will probably be splitting up into 2 segments, 2 videos. We'll see how far we can get today. This chapter, Consciousness, the Way Out of Pain, is all about the pain body and dissolving the pain body, and with it, the suffering that it creates. Okay, so let's get right into it. So let's start with this. The pain that you create now is always some form of non-acceptance, some form of unconscious resistance to what is. On the level of thought, the resistance is some form of judgment. On the emotional level, it is some form of negativity. And the intensity of the pain depends on the degree of resistance to the present moment. And this, in turn, depends on how strongly you are identified with your mind. So let me break that down real quick, because this is a very, very strong intro for this entire chapter. Because the entire pain body, and we'll get to talking about deeply what the pain body is and how to dissolve it. But this is right. Why he chose to put this in the beginning is because the reason for the pain body in the first place, the reason that we continue to create more pain in the now also, is resistance to what is a non-acceptance of what is. And Eckhart says that on a thought level, this resistance is always some form of judgment. Okay, there's a interpretation about what is. So for an example that I use all the time, let's just say that you got fired from your job and now you are unemployed. So instead of that just being what it is, the circumstance is what it is, the emotions that are coming with it, they are what they are, rather than just allowing the experience to be and being with it, what we are instantly doing is interpreting the event, judging the event, passing all sorts of labels onto the event, trying to avoid the event, trying to run away from the event, and running to something that is hopefully better, always chasing a better future. So instantly on a thought level, we're creating all this sort of resistance in form of judgments, labels, interpreting the event to be what we think it is. So see, what a circumstance actually is never really the problem. The problem is the meaning, the label, the interpretation that the mind generates. And the more that we live in this interpretation of what is, the more we suffer. So on a thought level, it is usually a judgment or so, an interpretation. And on the emotional level, we feel this as like a negative emotion. And they're very, very connected, right? Emotion, thought, they are mind. They're very, very connected. So the emotion then feeds into those thoughts of judgments and labels. Then the labels and judgments and interpretations then feed the emotion themselves. But this is at the heart of the pain body itself, non-resistance. Okay, so the intensity of this pain depends on the degree of resistance. So the more that you buy into the story that your mind is creating about the event of you losing your job, what it means for your future, what you have been conditioned to believe that this event means for your life, how you should feel if something like this happens to you, the degree of belief there is in those thoughts, to that degree, you will suffer. So Eckhart says, we can also put it like this. The more that you are able to honor and accept the now, the more you are free of pain, of suffering, and free of the egoic mind. So the more that we are able to just simply be with the now. So acceptance is not a practice of just making yourself believe or falsely just pretending to, oh yeah, this is fine, this is fine. It is actually just a simple acknowledgement that what is what is. And for now, it can be no other way. Just for the now, being with what is as it is, without constantly interpreting or judging or labeling, right? So setting the mind to the side and just being with what is as it is. That is the simple definition of acceptance. And the more we are in this acceptance, the more we are free of pain. So why does the mind habitually deny or resist the now? Because it cannot function and remain in control without time, which is past and future. So it perceives the timeless, the now, as threatening. Time and mind are in fact inseparable. So notice this right now. Again, as the previous example, you losing your job. The circumstance happens. That is you can say the content of your current moment, the content of what is, okay? Now, instead of just being with what is, instantly mind comes in and creates a story around it, creates a sense of past, future, constant thoughts, right? And look right now, what are all those thoughts? Every single thought that arises is either past or a projection of the future. That mind and time are inseparable. Mind is what creates the story. Mind is what creates the sense of time. In the timeless now, mind arises. And it takes the attention away into these projections of past and future. And what we are really doing with this practice of acceptance is bringing the attention away from time, away from mind, and being with what is actually true right here and now. Rather than being in projection about what is, we are being here with what actually is. And by doing so, we are dissolving time, we are dissolving mind, same thing really. And as a byproduct of that, we'll get into it deeply, we also dissolve the pain body, the pain that arises, the suffering that arises. So the mind is constantly ongoing. So let's put the pain body topic to the side for just a second. I want you to actually look throughout your day. The mind is always going and going and going and going. It's constant because it quite literally cannot pause, because you will start to see through the illusion. Because your entire identity, what we call the ego, this story, this idea that you have about yourself, I am so and so, I am Sunny. This identity relies on constant thought activity, a constant sense of past and constant sense of where I'm going. And so mind is always going, interpreting, judging, referring to previous experiences, making projections about future experiences. And it needs to constantly keep this cloud of mind going so that you don't come to the realization of what is true, of your true nature. This is always what I call the cloud of mind. This is what clouds your realization of self. So the more you are in mind, the more you will have this sense of time, this sense of identity, this sense of pain and suffering. Eckhart says, an increasingly heavy burden of time has been accumulating in the human mind. All individuals are suffering under this burden, but they also keep adding to it every moment whenever they ignore or deny that precious moment or reduce it as a means to getting to some future moment, which only exists in mind, never in actuality. And the accumulation of time in the collective and individual human mind also holds a vast amount of residual pain from the past. So, an increasing heavy burden of time has been accumulating in the human mind. Right? The more we're constantly adding to it. We suffer it, yet we continue to add to it. The entire spiritual path, the practice, what we are learning in this book, discovering your true nature, is the dissolving of that tendency, so that you no longer add to the pain. No, you no longer add to the accumulating time in mind. So this accumulation of pain is what gives rise to the pain body. So Eckhart says, first, so this is the last remark that he makes before really getting into discussing what the pain body is, right? He says how to stop creating time, right? Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have, all that actually is. Make the now the primary focus of your life, which all that consists of is taking the attention away from mind and bringing it to what is. Again and again and again. It is so simple, yet and difficult in the beginning, yes, but little by little, it starts to cut through the illusion, pierce through the illusion. The cloud starts to dissolve. You start to see through the layer of mind. Again, mind needs to constantly be going in order to veil this realization from you. Once we start to take the attention away from mind and direct it towards what is, not thinking about what is, again, that is in mind, but just simply being here. Practice your ability to be here now without interpreting what is in the now, without projecting about what is in the now, just being here with what is. This itself will start to thin the veil. Eckhart says, whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. Make it your friend and ally, not your enemy. So no matter how unpleasant the current present moment is, no matter whatever the contents of your experience are, no matter even if there is physical pain here, no matter if somebody has wronged you, you have to recognize that it is already on the screen of awareness. So if you look at, if you go to watch a movie and what is being projected on the screen, it's already on the screen. Just for this moment, it cannot be changed. It is already here. So this practice requires you to now accept what is as it is, just for the now. Just for the now. So now, pain body, dissolving the pain body. As long as you are unable to access the power of the now, every emotional pain that you experience leaves behind a residual pain that lives on in you. And this is a very, very important statement. So as before, we were talking about the accumulation of pain in the mind, accumulation of time in mind. So as long as we are living in this way, if we are just constantly living in the cloud of mind, then whatever pain we experience it leaves an impression. That is what we call trauma. And trauma exists entirely in the mind. And it reflects in the body as well, because they're very, very connected. The pain body is the accumulated pain. It is a negative energy field that occupies your body and mind. And it has two modes of being, dormant and active. A pain body may be dormant 90% of the time within you. And something may trigger and it goes off. Or in a deeply unhappy person, people who are really, really negative, the pain body, they must be entirely living through the pain body 100% of the time. So see how much it varies for you, right? So see, like, your certain triggers. How easy is it to trigger you? How easy is it to upset you? How often do you just get really, really emotional about certain things that happen in your external environment? You can kind of gauge what your particular pain bodies are based on those sorts of triggers and what really brings up these emotions. So when the pain body is ready to awaken from its dormant stage, even a thought or an innocent remark made by someone close to you can activate it. So refer back to certain times when someone had said something to you in passing, maybe a close one, maybe your partner, and it was nothing crazy. It was nothing serious or not even supposed to be an attack on you, but you took it the way you interpreted it, the way that you took it, and how emotional you got from it, it made you so triggered and you reacted. So that itself is a reflection of the pain body and how it operates. So it lies in the mind, and the mind interprets every single little thing in that way, where now this pain body can become more active. It can feed itself. So, and the pain body causes the mind to do that. And the more you're identified with the mind, the more you're living in the cloud, the more you give yourself into it. Some pain bodies are obnoxious, but relatively harmless, right? But others are destructive monsters, true demons. Some are physically violent. Many more are emotionally violent, right? Some will attack people around and close to you, while others may attack you, right? Their host. Thoughts and feelings you have about your life then become deeply negative and self-destructive. Illnesses and accidents are often created in this way. Some pain bodies drive their host to suicide. So they either attack you or they attack someone outside of you, and often both. So the pain body, as it arises, it's going to create that destructive thought pattern, and it's either going to be aimed at somebody else or it's going to be aimed at yourself. Many people who are constantly self-critical and just constantly thinking negatively about themselves, about their lives, it is that pain body in motion. And because they're so deeply identified with it, that seems to be their reality. It seems to be the truth. Only if they brought the light of consciousness into it, they would be free from it. And that's exactly what we're about to discuss. So you must learn to now catch the pain body the moment it awakens from its dormant state. Okay, so one thing you have to recognize is the pain body wants to survive, and it needs the mind to survive. Okay? Just like every other entity in existence, it can only survive if it gets you to unconsciously identify with it. The pain body wants to survive just like every other entity in existence, and it can only survive if it gets you to unconsciously identify with it and just go off into mind. Right? So the more you are identified with mind, the more you're believing in the thoughts that are arising in this moment, the more this pain body will become active. That is the simplest way to put it. And it needs to get its food through you. The food is your attention. It will feed on any experience that resonates with its own kind of energy as well. So anything that creates further pain in whatever form, anger, destructiveness, hatred, grief, emotional distress. So the pain body itself, you can say it's sort of like a negative vibrational pattern, and it feeds on negative thoughts and negative experiences. And because mind and experience, mind and world are so interconnected, they are the same. They arise together, mind and world, right? The image over here. The pain body, when it has taken you over and you're lost in this mind and all this mind, it will naturally create some sort of trigger in your external environment through which it can perpetuate itself. So everything will be interpreted as negative. Little things will bother you. Things will trigger you in order to feed itself. And the more you're just in this mind and you're just going about like just feeding into this mental dialogue, the more you're actually feeding the pain body, and the more it's creating these sorts of experiences. So it's like a cycle that gets destructive very, very quickly. So the pain body, when it has taken you over, will create a situation in your life that reflects back its own energy frequency for it to feed on. Pain can only feed on pain. Pain cannot feed on joy. It finds it quite indigestible. Once the pain body has taken you over, you want more pain, believe it or not. You become a victim or a perpetrator. You want to inflict pain or you want to suffer pain, or both. There isn't really much of a difference between the two. So here's the thing. If you are the type of person who's constantly negative, who constantly believes the world to be negative, and you claim that, no, I don't want to suffer, I don't want this pain, but I just have a negative life, like this is just the way it is. That is the mind itself speaking. That is the pain body itself speaking. And in that perspective, it makes you believe that, oh, it's true, I don't want the pain. But on a deep level within, the mind finds pleasure in this pain because it deepens its sense of identity. It strengthens the ego. It strengthens the mind identification. So if you're living in this state, or even like in a very, very, just a moment where you get triggered and the anger comes up, right? I've noticed this personally and like with friends, and like ever since I became aware of this and started practicing it myself, started to become aware of it in myself, obviously, and others as well. And seeing that when people become angry or when people become upset, they want to remain upset. And ultimately, they themselves don't want to remain upset, but because the pain body has taken them over, they don't want it any other way. And you can even apologize to a person like this. You can say something and try to explain your perspective, but everything will be turned around, interpreted in a negative way, or it will be taken as an attack, and they will attack back. So when the pain body has taken us over, we want to suffer. We want the pain. Either in a victim way where we're like, oh, I'm just a victim and I'm suffering this pain and all that, or in a perpetrator way where we want to inflict this pain onto others. And obviously it happens unconsciously, right? If you were truly conscious of it, the pattern would dissolve. So any form of reactivity in your day, any form of negativity in your day, you fall into those because you are unconscious. If you were conscious truly of the pain body, of your pain body, then it would dissolve. That's the thing right here. So many people who even go through this chapter, who understand it properly, many people who even go through this, like, it's always about interpreting it in other people or just talking about it for the sake of talking about it, but then continuing to be reactive and so on and so forth. Whereas all the pain bodies that are active in you, that is what you must learn to bring the light of your awareness to. Because the illusion, right? You don't think you're in the illusion. You don't think you're unconscious. And that is the whole illusion. That is the definition of the illusion. You don't think you're in it. And that is what the pain body paints. So you really have to just take a step back and let go of any belief that I have or don't have pain bodies or whatever. And just now live, right? Just moment by moment and see what comes up. See what triggers you. See what makes you reactive. Because it will instantly show you where you're still identifying and having all those attachments to all that pain in mind. The pain body, which is the dark shadow cast by the ego, is actually afraid of the light of your consciousness. It is afraid of being found out. Its survival depends on your unconscious identification with it. So that's very, very important. It can only operate as long as you remain unconscious. The more you start to take and it's simple as this, the more you start to take your attention away from mind and just being with what is, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's painful, you will start to transmute that pain. But if you don't face it, if you don't bring the light of your consciousness into the pain, you will be forced to relive it again and again. And this is what creates destructive cycles in your life. This is what creates more and more pain. This is what creates those sorts of repetitive patterns where you're like, why is this always happening to me? It's because you're being learned to relive the pain again and again, because when it happens, you just live in the interpretation of it. You avoid it. You run away from it. You don't face it. If you don't face it, you're going to have to relive it. And facing it, all that means is, again, taking the attention away from the thoughts of the pain and on thoughts of the emotion, thoughts of what's going on, and actually bringing the attention here and just being with what is as it is. This is what I call the acceptance method. This is what you may know as the letting go method by David R. Hawkins. This method, as simple as it is ultimately the only way to be. It is the only way to dissolve trauma. It is the only way to dissolve pain. Everything else is secondary. The moment you observe it, feel its energy field within you, and take your attention into it, the identification is broken. A higher dimension of consciousness has come in. I call it presence. So the moment you begin to observe the pain or the emotion or whatever is currently arising for you, and you just are with it, right? Attention away from the thoughts of it to the actual what is, right? So whatever emotion is currently coming up in your body, whatever the atmosphere of your experience is, just being with it as it is. And just keeping the attention here. By keeping the attention here, by observing it without interpretation, you break identification with it. How? It's because now you are the watcher of it. Before, you were it. You were the pain and you were living from the pain. But now you're actually watching the pain. And now you're creating space between what I am and the pain. And by doing this, now the identification is broken. And now it can no longer take over you. No, now it can no longer control you. And its only means of doing so is by, again, feeding you those thoughts. If you lose yourself to thought, you will, again, come back into that level of mind identification, pain body identification. Observation, just pure observing without interpretation, is what creates this distance between you and it. It's what shines the light of your consciousness on it and ultimately dissolves it. Super, super important. So unconsciousness creates the pain body. Consciousness transmutes it into itself. St. Paul expressed this universal principle beautifully. Everything is shown up by being exposed to light, and whatever is exposed to light itself becomes light. Just as you cannot fight the darkness, you cannot fight the pain body. Trying to do so would create inner conflict and thus further pain. Watching it is enough. Watching it implies accepting it as a part of what is in this moment. So you see how simple it is? Simply by watching it and being with it as it is, keeping the attention here, it is enough. It is so simple that the mind is like, no, it's not going to work, but put it into practice. You will see for yourself. Just by watching it and just staying consistent with this practice, the identification will itself be broken. And you can't fight against the pain, right? Because you can't fight against it because, again, where would you be fighting from? You'll be fighting from the identification. Again, when you're fighting against something, you are in mind identification. You are now forming another layer of mind over the pain, whereas another layer of interpretation about the pain, right? So it's just coming from mind, trying to fight the mind. And the mind does, and lures you into this illusion because the more you fight the mind, the more it grows. Again, the greater the sense of identity is formed. The only way to dissolve the mind is to let it be, put it to the side. You don't have to transcend the mind. What you are truly is already free of mind, is already transcendent of mind. And all that is required is for you to take your attention away from it and just keep it here, now. So be the ever alert guardian of your inner space. Stay present. And by doing so, you will not allow the pain body to take over you. You will dissolve it as it is coming up. And this is an amazing way to just dissolve all the pain that you have accumulated in mind. Again, what you truly are is already transcendent of the pain, of the mind, of all the suffering. The self does not suffer. It is the idea that you have of yourself, the mind-identified self, the ego. That is what suffers. So by doing just this simple practice, you're already disengaging from that identity and coming back to your true position. So rather than identifying as the little movie character on the screen of awareness, you're by simply taking your attention away from thought and just being here as you are, the watcher. You're going from that little movie character perspective to recognizing that you are the entire screen on which the movie is being played. And no matter what movie is being played on the screen, it doesn't affect the screen. It doesn't hurt the screen. It doesn't change the screen. The screen is free of the movie, unaffected by it. So this practice is a coming back to that position, recognizing your true self through acceptance. And this is something that I also focus heavily on in my program as well. So the moment your thinking is aligned with the energy field of the pain body, you are identified with it again and are again feeding it with your thoughts. So for example, If you have a tendency of becoming angry quite often, the more angry thoughts that you think, the more you think about the thoughts of what is making you angry, or what, like why you are angry, the story around why you are angry, the more you will feed the emotion of anger, the more you will feed the pain body. Again, don't let the thinking become aligned with this. Instead, just take your attention away from the thinking itself and just be here and now. Be present. So some people say, but no, I can't stop thinking. The thoughts just keep coming. But that itself in this now is just another thought. Don't claim that to be your voice. You see what I mean by like saying that you are living from that perspective, from that state, from that place? You think that this voice that arises that, no, I can't stop thinking because of too many thoughts. You think that is true. You think that that is your voice. I'm asking you to recognize that even that is simply a thought that is arising, that is making you believe that this is your truth, but it's not. Place yourself as the watcher of even that thought, and you will be freed from that identity. So let's summarize the dissolving the pain body process, okay? Focus attention on the feeling inside you. Know that it is the pain body. Accept it, that it is there. Don't think about it. Don't let the feeling turn into thinking. Don't judge or analyze. Don't make an identity for yourself out of it. Stay present and continue to observe what is happening inside you. Become aware not only of the emotional pain, but also of the one who observes, the silent watcher. So I want to quickly summarize this process. So one thing I will say is that you don't need to learn anything more about the pain body than you just did right now in this moment. Don't go researching so many things. Don't go thinking about what it is. Don't try to figure it out. Again, that is just you being in mind. And the mind is continuing to keep you distracted from just dissolving the layer, the cloud, and it's just keeping you in the cloud. So all that you learned in this video is all you need to know about the pain body, even if you're confused right now. All that you need to do to dissolve the pain body from here on out is live life, right? Just continue, let life unfold. When any form of negativity is arising, any form of pain is arising, it could be physical pain, it could be emotional pain, it could be anything. When it arises, no matter what is causing it, we're not concerned with that in this practice. When it arises, any form of emotion, you are taking your attention away from the thoughts about the emotion or the event that caused it or the person that caused it. All interpretation about it, all judgments, all labels. You're taking your attention away from the mind and bringing it into the emotion itself. And the emotion itself is felt usually in your body. This is the general atmosphere of your experience. Just bringing the attention here and accepting that it is the way it is right now, and just allowing it to be what it is just for the now. And just being here with it. And just watching it. Just being the watcher of it. And just by doing this, you will start to dissolve all the pain that is constantly coming up. Right? So this isn't a one-time practice. And this isn't something that, you do only once and it's done. This is, so just continue to do this throughout your life, throughout your day. Anytime, any form of negativity, irritation, resistance that comes up, rather than going off into thinking about what it is or what's causing it or the story of, everything, to just actually feeling the emotion fully. You will see that by doing this, you will create this space between you and the pain body, you and the mind. Not only will you start to dissolve all this pain, but also you will start to transcend the identity, the mind identification. And that is the more important aspect of this practice. So Eckhart says, don't only be aware of the pain, right? So the first step, especially if you're a beginner to this, I want you to only be aware of the pain and just keep your attention there. But then take it the next step, take it a level deeper. Become aware of the one that is watching the pain, right? So mixing a little bit of self-inquiry in here to really free you up. The one who observes, the silent watcher. Become aware of that one. So we do got a couple of pages left on the pain body chapter. So we'll cover that in the next video. Okay, so that's it for today. I want to know if this video was helpful for you, if it was clear what the pain body is and how to dissolve it. Let me know that in the comment section below, okay? Let me know if you're enjoying this Power of Now series, and I'll continue making it. If you did enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up, okay? Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Again, you can watch this entire playlist that I'm doing. I'll link it down below, okay? In the first comment of this video and in the description box below. But other than that, I will see you next time.